Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast, episode 190, the final episode of 2022. Today we're doing a year-end recap for 2022. And I've kind of done this before when I've done the episodes where I talk about the upcoming year, like Happy New Year, this, and I may still do an episode next year for that, where I kind of talk about my goals for the upcoming year. But right now, I've decided to just talk about this year in full, which really truly has been a mixture of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Um, where do I even start? It's difficult to say. Like, I think the last 2 or 3 months of my life have been particularly difficult. Um, it is what it is, but there's been a lot of positives, a lot of things career wise as I pursue my dreams of acting and voice acting and podcasting and everything else that I'm trying to achieve in life. There have been some major pushes forward in this year. And I guess with me reflecting on this year, I am trying to be as hopeful as I can for the upcoming year. It's difficult to be sometimes. Um, right now, I'm in a very stressful situation in every single way possible. And it's just weighing on my mind every single day. But, I'm trying to, as best as I can, focus on the positives. Like this show. It's been going nearly 3 years now. 3 years. 190 episodes. That's mad to think about. When I first started doing this show, I was just trying to figure out what I was doing. I wasn't really sure what this was. And I think over the course of the last 3 years, it's kind of evolved into a mixture of a discussion interview show slash an opportunity to kind of look at life in different ways with different perspectives and just learn something, or have fun. And I must say I'm enjoying this way more than I used to. And I've said that in more recent shows, but something's changed. I think I just enjoy creating content more now because I'm not so hung up on like numbers as much as I used to be. I'm just like trying to make things happen and trying to enjoy it as best I can and make it as good as possible for the handful of people that are checking it out. I love you all. Thank you so much. Let's just jump straight into it. Um, I had a sales job at the beginning of this year. It was the best paid job I've ever had. I was working for a private healthcare company that was doing a lot of work with the NHS. And it felt very rewarding, to be honest. I was very apprehensive about going for this sales position because I hate sales. It's not for me. I've done telesales before, very briefly at my university, but that was for like a charity sort of. It was for the university, like getting old um, ex students to support the university and support current day students. So it felt somewhat rewarding. And this, I remember going for the interview, going in there with the CEO and the COO, and they were really lovely from the get go. And I remember realizing within the first 10 minutes, this isn't going to work. This isn't for me. Why did I even go for this? I think I went for it because it was like a contract freelance deal. And that's exactly what I was looking for at the time. And so, I went for it and it turned into, it went from me trying to sort of gauge what they were doing and them trying to sell the job to me, and then me kind of deciding this is not for me in the course, midway through the course of the interview. And then they were trying to convince me that I should give it a go. Like they hadn't kind of come out and said that I got the job, but it was like they were trying to convince me I should go for this. It's a very weird situation. I think a few days later, they employed me and we started working together, and it was perfect. Originally, I was doing 4 days a week, went down to 3 days a week. At one point, we'll get back to that. And, best paid job I've ever had. Working from home, brilliant. There's nothing really negative I could say about the job as far as that was concerned in the very beginning. And I mean, it started to kind of go south once the CEO decided to cut my hours, which is fine. It's contract work. This is the name of the game. It's business. Sometimes they don't need you. That's the way these things happen sometimes. But the way they tried to go about it, or the way the CEO tried to go about it, very shady indeed. So instead of just being like, we need to cut your hours, we want to pay you less, which would be fine. It's not great, but I would understand. Instead, he decided to ask me if I was taking breaks. And I assumed he meant like holiday. I don't know why, but my head went straight to holiday, and I was like, haha, well, I'm self-employed, so I don't get breaks, but I'm fine with our arrangement. Those pretty much exactly my words to him. He then started going on about how he was doing this like audit. Well, there was a third party company doing like an external audit, and that they needed to check that I was taking my regular breaks. And I was like, what? And I said, well, I mean, I just have a bit of food before the shift or after the shift. I mean, it's fine. I'm at home anyway. If I need to take a break, I will. But I never used to take proper breaks because I was at home chilling, getting the work done. It wasn't very strenuous. But he was insisting, like, you need to take these breaks. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, fine. And then it escalated into him talking about somehow like paying me less, but I would still work the same hours. And I said, listen, one or two things. It's one or the other. Either you're cutting my hours and you're cutting my pay, which I understand, or we continue the arrangement as before, and we're on our merry way. Which is it? He then weirdly said, "Oh, let me talk to HR. Let me talk to the investment board. I'll get back to you." And I was like, I think I've rumbled this guy. I mentioned it to my boss, who never had any inkling that this had even happened, and he was annoyed about that. And so he had to have cross words with him. Because here's the thing: when you work in a really, really, really small company, like a startup, and it's got a very flat structure, you'll get instances where someone will be your manager, but then sometimes you'll get like people higher up in the company that will just randomly message you on apps like Slack and start giving you work. And you're like, doesn't this kind of undermine what my boss is getting me to do? Shouldn't the message come through them? Shouldn't they know? Shouldn't they be aware of it? That's not how all businesses roll. That's not how people always roll. And so there were a lot of instances like that. And towards the end, the CEO was getting very impatient. He'd get us to start working on a project, and 2 weeks in, he'd be like, why have we not seen any progress? And it's like, it's been 2 weeks. Give it at least a month. Then we'll see where we're at. And it just so happened that our method of contact wasn't very effective. Phone calls with the NHS, it's not very effective. They're busy trying to save people's lives and other stuff, and they're overworked and underfunded. It's not really the way to get through to these people. And this particular CEO expected us to kind of call up and fib about having appointments booked when we didn't, just so that we could get through to them, which I was like, I'm not doing that. That's wrong. Can't be doing that. So well, it was what it was. It is what it is. But that's when I began to see problems with continuing to work there. And then fast forward to about a month and a half before I was about to leave, I wasn't sure I was going to leave. What happened was I came back from like either some time off or a weekend, excuse me, and my boss just randomly said, I'm leaving. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck? And then he was like, yeah, and there's a lot of reasons why, da, 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 da. And I was like, oh shit. And he started to tell me why. And then it became like really apparent, like just the problems that were inherent in this company, particularly with the CEO. And I was like, oh shit. And then I said I had to sit and think about whether or not I was going to stay, because I really got on well with this manager. But I didn't see much of a future with this CEO, because he seemed very erratic, very intelligent, but very erratic. And you need some consistency, some structure within your workplace. It can't just be balls to the walls, just all over the place. You know, you need some structure within the chaos. It's just how it works. Anyway, a week later, I find out the other sales guy is leaving. And now I'm like, oh shit, now I really got to make up my mind. And so I went back and forth on it, and I wasn't entirely sure what to do and how to approach it, etc. And then it got closer to the end of the month, and I was like, right, okay, these guys are about to leave. This CEO must have a plan for me moving forward. And the time just kept going on and on, nothing, 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 nothing. Then eventually he reaches out to me and he lays down somewhat of a plan, but it was basically like I was going to do sales demos for the company, having had no experience with that or training or anything like that. So I'd say essentially be taking on the responsibilities of the sales manager without having been prepped or trained for them. And I just had zero confidence in that. I was like, how can I be confident in this moving forward? How can I work in this organization when there's no support pushing me into a new thing? You know what I mean? It's just, there was nothing really to be confident in, I suppose. And that kind of ultimately led me to the decision to leave. And it wasn't easy because, as I said before, 3 days a week, working from home, best paid job I'd ever had. Felt like a moron for leaving, but I can't work with people I don't trust. It's very important. You need to be able to trust the people you work with, and I just couldn't. And so that was an interesting start to the year. I think I was with them sort of the tail end of 2021, and I sort of left them mid-year. I found myself in a freelance writing job with an agency. And, you know, I've been doing freelance writing for marketing since I got my degree back in 2017, 2018. So it's something that I always do and I always apply for, and I get stuff here and there. It's just the nature of the game, freelancing. But this was the first time I'd had a bad experience where I started working with this agency. Everything was fine for about a month and a half. And they were telling me my work was really good and they were really happy and everything's going well. And then a month and a half later, this manager just gets back to me and says, no, all of this is wrong. It needs to be changed. And I was really perplexed by this because we had an editor on staff who would check through all this work. And presumably he did random checks as well. Obviously, he couldn't check everyone's work, but he would have done random checks here and there for quality assurance purposes, right? It just kind of perplexed me how suddenly there's an issue with the work. Suddenly there's all sorts of problems that need to be fixed. And this kind of continued for the next few weeks until it got to a point where it was unbearable and I dreaded having to write articles because I never knew what they were going to say or what they were going to change. Constantly felt like the goalposts were being moved. And I was like, I can't work with this. I just can't. And at the time, I'd floated the idea of just pulling some random bar shifts alongside what I was doing, just so I had different sources of revenue that I could rely on, because I've been freelancing for a while now. So it makes sense to try different things, right? Anyway, I do this. And then fast forward to like a week or two later, and this guy's saying like, "Oh yeah, your work is I can't publish this. This is awful. Da, 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 da. This needs to change. This needs to change. I need to bring in other writers that I'm going to pay to fix your work." And I was like, "Okay, fine. Just do what you need to do. I just need to get my final check." But they started withholding my final check, and so I was like, "What do I do? I got to pay the rent. Like, what the fuck? Give me my money." You know, I understand that you've decided to rewrite some of these and charge other writers, but pay me what I've earned so far, and we can do a gentleman's agreement and we'll go our separate ways. And eventually we did that, but it was a real pain in the ass just getting that set up, and it was just unnecessary for it to go down like that. And that's kind of how I ended up falling back into bartending, which, look, after 5 years of being away from customer services, working in marketing, I had never envisioned myself being back in customer services and working as a bartender again. And look, I like bartending, it's fine, but look, it's long hours, terrible pay, difficult situations, and it's not what I imagined doing at this point in my life. I'm 29, I turn 30 next year, and I work for minimum wage in a bar, and it is what it is, but it's getting increasingly more difficult. I'll talk about what's going on right now. So they've cut my hours. Um, I was getting consistent hours regularly. It was enough to pay my bills and just get me going along. And now, for the first week of January moving forward, they've cut my hours, and now I don't know what to do. I'm looking for jobs. I have been looking for jobs for the past couple of months, and it comes at the most inconvenient time. I'm about to move into a new place. I'm I'm ill. I'm really ill. I have like the flu or some shit. I've been ill for the last week, and I'm trying to balance all this stuff that I'm doing online as well. And it's just like I feel like I'm facing everything all at once, and that's largely what this year has been in a nutshell. I covered some of this in my reflecting on life episode recently, so go check that out. But that's what this year has been. This year has been a true kind of up and down and up and down and up and down situation, and it's not been easy, and it's been a real test of my mental health. And then there's been positive things like hitting the gym and working hard in the gym, and that's been a positive, and I can't complain about that. And I wouldn't want to. I don't like complaining. Surprise, surprise. I don't mind ranting and getting it out of my system. I don't like sitting there, like standing at the bar and just having the weight of the world seemingly on my shoulders and sitting and feeling like that, or like being in live streams and trying to be positive but just feeling like utter shit and bad about myself. Like, I don't like feeling that way. I certainly don't want to make others feel bad as a result of how I feel. But it's just this constant pressure all the time that just makes me feel like it's difficult to be positive about what's coming next, because I just feel like more shit is coming my way. So what's going to happen next? What new crap will I have to deal with? It's I just need a fucking break. And I don't mean a holiday. I mean, I need some luck. I need to catch a break and get somewhere with this acting. Something, maybe the online stuff. I don't know, anything. I need to start finding a way to earn a living from doing what I'm doing here with acting, music, podcasting, live streaming, content creating. And I'm trying my best to juggle it all right now. But I don't know, maybe I'm not trying hard enough. I feel like I am, but maybe I'm not. I don't know. I just, I look around me, I see people being successful, I see people working hard, I see them, you know, prospering from the fruits of their labor. And I wonder, like, could that be me one day? Do I deserve that? Will I ever achieve that? Or will this always just be a pipe dream? Will this always just be something I'm chasing but never achieving? I don't know. But I know that I'm mentally and physically exhausted from having started to, work back in customer services again. And I can't help but feel somewhat like a failure sometimes. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just stayed in marketing and bit the bullet and just been miserable. But hey, at least I got a job and a salary, right? But I just can't force myself to be happy or passionate about things I'm not passionate about. Whenever I do acting, I feel so passionate. I love it so much. I love live streaming. I love doing this podcast. I always feel passionate about it. I get excited about it. Like I sit and write my notes like I've got here, and I just get like giddy about it. I'm like, oh, what am I going to get to do next? Oh, I've got some ideas. I've got some new ideas. This is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting. People are going to enjoy this. And then you get the feedback back, and people are like, yeah, I really like this episode. And could you do stuff about this? And I'm like, yes, let's do it. Um, why can't I do it for a living? Yeah. So that's how it is anyway. Um, but it's not all bad. I think bartending has been great for my self confidence. It's an opportunity to practice communication skills, just public speaking, all of that. I just have fun. Everything from just having a laugh with the customers, sometimes flirting with people, just having fun. I do enjoy that element of it. If it wasn't just such long hours and tricky bits here and there, it would be the perfect job. But it's, yeah, I kind of just can't work for anyone anymore, not in the traditional sense. Acting, I could do it, but I can't work for companies anymore. I feel like those days should be behind me by now. And yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, man. I'm just trying to make ends meet, but even that seemingly is an issue right now. But anyway, let's not try to dwell too much. Let's try to move forward and keep this somewhat positive. It's an end of year recap. I will try to keep it positive. Twitch and TikTok. So I grouped these together because in the year 2022, for a while I was streaming on Twitch with my regular community, my wonderful friends and followers, and we had a lot of fun on there, and it was cool, and we reached some new people here and there. But TikTok is better for reaching people. You can't deny that. And when I finally was able to stream again via my second account, when I got enough followers on that, I returned to TikTok, and we've been streaming there ever since. And I think it was the right move ultimately. Um, I certainly have enjoyed being back there and seeing what we can do with it and whatnot. But I feel like more could be done to make them better in terms of like growing. It's very difficult to grow on Twitch. TikTok is easy to grow, but it's tricky to keep people's attention. You know, if you do gain fans, you will likely have loyal fans there, and I'm very grateful to the people that have checked me out and have checked out the other types of content that I do. One thing that I've changed recently is I advertise myself a lot more. When there's new people around, I will plug myself like crazy. When I end an episode, I always mention all these places that they can check me out and that they can, help me out, like patreon.com/Christian Reeve, or follow me on Instagram at Christian PK Reeve Official, or TikTok Christian PK Reeve Official. Yeah, make sure you get those plugs there in there on the podcast, Christian. um, yeah, I guess I've played the traditional salesman again, and it's worked somewhat. We're beginning to grow somewhat of a following, both on Instagram, TikTok, and also with these podcasts and these other forms of content. I actually have Patreon subscribers now. Like, somewhat, I think it seems like a loyal fan base. And more importantly, which I need to mention here, which something is new, is I created a series called Life with Christian Reeve for the patreon.com/Christian Reeve. And it's given me an opportunity to help to brand the podcast better, because now I've got an outlet. Life with Christian Reeve is just me telling stories, right? It's an opportunity to just sit and listen to me talk about things. And I do that here on the podcast, but it will often tend to be more about a specific topic and not really about me. I might share my stories, experience about something, but generally I try to keep it just about the topic, right? And then most of the discussions are centered around the person, my guest. So you don't really get to sit and listen to me share stories unless I might sometimes share them with guests on the show or whatever the case may be. But now there's an outlet, and there's also an opportunity to give people an update on what's going on in my life and to rant a little bit as well, which I've been doing lately quite a bit. But it's always fun to do something new, to try something new, do something a bit different. And I've been trying to make the most of my opportunities to do new things wherever I can. I've tried lots of different content types this year. But yeah, setting up that Patreon and really actually giving people something new, something valuable has been a real proud achievement of mine. And also just the podcast getting sponsored was big, even though it's just by Anchor, which is the host platform, which enabled me to get on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, etc. I was able to record my own ad read for it. I can see that I'm slowly earning money for it, and nowhere near being able to cash out or anything. But to me, it was more important to just get the sponsorships for the validity, to feel like the show is more reputable now that it's got a sponsor. Like it just feels like a big deal to me. And hopefully one day it will attract new sponsors, and we'll really get the show on its feet and moving forward. Because I am proud of it. I'm proud of what we've achieved with the show. And I feel like it's only just the beginning. We're only 3 years in, and there's so much more to come. So much more we can do with the show, you know? But anyway, I did a commercial for a company called Bad Squiddo Games. Shout out to them. I had Annie Norman, the CEO of the company, on my show. And I did a commercial for her where I provided a voiceover and did some voice acting for a product that she was selling called the Tree Pen. And this was my opportunity to just be absurd and silly and have fun with voices. But also, I think it was amazing because this person had reached out to me on Instagram. They'd seen me in live streams online. They decided to take a risk on me and reach out and be like, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this?" I absolutely jumped at the opportunity, and that's the same with the podcast as well. People have been reaching out to me, so it's not always me trying to reach out to people. It's people reaching out to me, either recognizing my work somewhere or someone has introduced them to my work and they've been like impressed and then they've decided to approach me. So that is amazing because I suppose it demonstrates that my work is beginning to attract interest in a positive way, certainly in a work way. So maybe I'm doing something right there. And that's happening more and more. I did ADR work for Channel 4. I didn't even know what ADR was until this year. Um, it was a brilliant experience. We went to some warehouse in Manchester, and I was in a room with like 7 other voice actors, some of whom have been doing it for like 20 years. All lovely people. And we basically just stood in this recording room with different microphones, and we would take turns switching around, and we would sit and just make up conversation with each other. We'd watch the screen and we'd pretend to make up conversations around what people might be saying. Literally, we got paid several £100s to just talk nonsense, improvise. And for what it's worth, I am quite good at improvisation. It's something I've luckily been gifted with and I'm able to do. And this was a perfect opportunity to showcase that. And then we did some pickups later for some other shows as well. But it was amazing to be able to do something for a company like Channel 4. It wasn't directly affiliated, but it was for a show that they'll be doing or releasing later in the year, I think, if it's not on TV already. But that was amazing. And I got contacted randomly about it. And I just jumped at the chance. And that's what it seems to be like for acting and voice acting in my career so far. It's like I get these random opportunities out of nowhere, and then there'll be like loads of like time where I don't have any work going on, and then suddenly I'll have more work going on. So it's kind of a special feeling. And I try to take every situation as an opportunity. So like right now, that first week of January where I don't have enough hours to make ends meet, I'm thinking, all right, that means I have lots of days off to do things, to get things done. So there's no excuses. No, I should use that time and work my ass off and try to make things happen. That's what I should do. So that's how I see it. With every bad situation comes a good opportunity. At one point this year, I auditioned for a Viking style movie. Makes sense, right? Long hair. And there were some good talking points about this audition. It was the first time I've ever auditioned for something that had hand-to-hand combat. And so they wanted us to practice for hours, practice and memorize like fighting sequences. There was another guy there. Shout out to Gaston. He probably won't see this, but that was probably the best thing about that experience was meeting Gaston. He's an actor from Newcastle, really, really good dude. And it was quite funny because we were in the like some sort of gym and we were warming up, and it came to a point where people were choosing their partners that they were going to do some like exercises with or something, and we both just looked at each other immediately when they met when they when they spoke about partners, and it was kind of like a nod, like yes, like I want to fucking train with that guy. It was that kind of situation. Like I looked at this guy and I was like, this guy's cool, and he was like feeling the same way about me, and yeah, um, and then we did our auditions, which were really weird, and I wasn't really sure what to make of them. And plus, we found out we were going for the same role, but we both kind of felt like it would make more sense if I played the bad guy and he played the good guy, because he had a good guy look and I had a bad guy look, and it would have we seem to have chemistry. So I hope one day we'll get to work on something together, because I feel like we could do something really good together. But that experience, yeah, it was interesting. Ultimately, I think it was weird because I remember I had the director on my, like, as a friend on Instagram, because on acting sets you always follow people back and stuff. And I'll just say on a side note, I've had a lot of instances with both on a professional sense and also a friend sense where I'll reach out to someone and then they just fucking read my messages and then don't respond. They just ghost you. That's not normal, is it? I could understand if I was like harassing someone or something, but I'll just say like perfectly normal platonic things and then people just don't respond. Do better, people. I always reply to people. I always get back to people. I just don't understand this kind of shitty mindset. Like, I mean, I was just left thinking, oh, I guess this guy just isn't very professional then. It's like at least have the decency to just turn around and be like, oh, sorry, we're not interested, or oh, hey, I don't think your idea is very good. Because what I pitched to him was what I told you before, this idea that me and this guy had great chemistry. It might be a good idea for his film if we would give this a go. Like, that would be great. And then I thanked him for the opportunity. We got a message eventually, like an email, telling us that production was stalled and they might pick it up later next year or something. But I was mentally checked out after that. I was like, nah, like, how are you gonna like message me? How am I gonna message you on Instagram and then you're just gonna ghost my messages? And this has happened with other instances as well, like women in my life. And yeah, it's kind of made me just resign to the fact that I'm just done, completely done with chasing relationships. I'm no longer interested. Like, it would have to take someone pretty special that was willing to like change my mind, because right now I'm like, y'all just mean and rude, and I don't have the energy to chase people. I'm not, I don't do that. I don't do games. I just want someone who's normal, who just treats people with respect. Is that so much to ask? And is the same is true of professional work. I just want to work with straightforward people who aren't unprofessional. I just don't understand why people can't be straightforward with each other. Why there always has to be games played, or people aren't polite to each other, or people are shitty with each other. Like, I don't get this. It's just frustrating to me. And I think it's unnecessary and very unbecoming and just rude. But whatever. You know what I mean? It is what it is. Dodgy foreign commercials, right? So I did some stuff for a company based in Manchester, a production company, and look, it's exactly what it says on the tin. We were doing this stuff for like a foreign client. They were very hazy about giving information, but they didn't give information to anyone. Some people were investigators, and they would find out for themselves, but most people didn't know about this company. And then I found out a few weeks back, after having done lots of different commercials for this company, and I only ever played like an extra in the background, like pretend to be like a cameraman or something. But I found out I made the BBC News. That's right, this ugly mug was on BBC News because this company was found out to be fake, obviously. And if you went on like YouTube, you'd see that clearly. It was kind of hilarious. But it was weird, like all these scenarios they got us to act out. But there's a lot of companies that do this, that get paid actors to pretend to work for them, and then they get found out as being like fake, or like, I think that was it. The company was exposed as being a scam, and we all kind of knew it would be a scam, but has nothing to do with us. We're just the actors that were paid to recreate these weird scenarios for them. So yeah. I'm sorry to hear if anyone got scammed by that company. I had nothing to do with it. Sorry to hear that. Um, but yeah, this shit happens, I guess. You have to be careful with these investment style companies. Moving forward, I did an Alan Turing documentary. I provided narration and voice acting for an Alan Turing documentary, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of. I couldn't believe getting the opportunity to do this. Alan Turing is an amazing man, and it was very difficult sitting and reading these letters and then recreating that and learning about his life because I knew the basics about him, but I didn't realize the extent of things, and it was very tough to do. There were a lot of pickups for this and everything, but the experience really gave me a lot of faith and belief in myself that I could pull off more serious things and that maybe I'm going somewhere with this. Maybe I'm not kidding myself. Maybe I've got something that is worth something when it comes to acting and voice acting. Maybe. I don't know. I'm certainly trying very hard to make it a reality. But this was one of those projects that kind of made me feel like valid, like what I'm doing, my efforts are not wasted, essentially. And it's been a very good experience. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that, really. I hope that I get to go to the premiere. Apparently, it's going to premiere in London, and I hope that it becomes a big deal. You never know. Maybe it will. Fingers crossed. I'm finally moving out. For those people who have been following me for a long time, you'll know that I have had a very difficult situation in the place that I've lived for nearly 3 years now. It'll be 3 years in February, but I'm moving out before then. It's been 3 years in Manchester. It's been a fucking nightmare for various reasons. There's been good spells, but it's mostly been very, very difficult. Now I'm finally getting the opportunity to move out, and I could not be happier. I would have liked to have moved out at least a year ago, but sometimes things get in the way. But here we are right now with the opportunity to move out, and I feel a tremendous sense of relief that I finally get to leave after all this time and everything I've been through. We're still not out of the woods. There's still shit to sort out and stuff, but it just feels like a relief, like a big weight has been lifted off my shoulders, and I can begin the next stage of my life. And I'm moving closer into the city of Manchester. So it's like a new chapter, which is kind of exciting. Excited to see what happens next. Yeah, I'm very hopeful for this upcoming year. I want it to be like, I know as cliched as it sounds, but like a new year, new opportunity for me, like I turn 30 next year, guys. This is the final year of my 20s, and my 20s has been difficult. It's brought a lot of life lessons. It's had good moments, but it's mostly just been challenging and difficult and not what I imagined it to be. Like I knew that adult life would be difficult. I didn't realize it'd be this difficult. I know what I want now in life. I know what I expect of life. I know what I deserve in life. Whether or not I get it is another story, but at least now I know. Before I didn't. And there were a lot of life lessons I had to learn and that I'm still learning. But it's been tough. It has been tough. I hope my 30s treats me better. Everyone I've met that's, older than me says that your 30s is like one of the best times in your life. I really hope that that's true. Because I need some positivity. It's not to say there isn't any positivity in my life, because there is. There's plenty. It's plenty that I'm grateful for. But, when you think about the overall of everything in your life and where you're at different points in your life, you always look back and think, right, am I in a better position than I was, say, a year ago, 5 years ago, whatever? I feel like mentally I am right now, but then circumstance wise, I feel like I'm not in control, like everything's kind of fucked. But something always works out eventually. That's what I've understood about life. Like something always works out eventually. You just kind of have to stay the course and hope for the best and not panic. And it's very normal for me to worry and overthink and panic, but I feel like maybe, just maybe, something good is coming. I hope so, so much. So much. Please be my year, 2023. All right, let's move it forward. Questions from Vilma. Shout out to Vilma. Thank you so much. Yeah. What are your three favorite episodes of the podcast in 2022 and why? Gosh, I'm going to try to think off the top of my head. I think some of the ones that stand out, getting to episode 150 was a big deal. Um, just because it's 150. Yeah, it's a big number. It was cool because that guy then went on to be featured on a Netflix documentary, and then inevitably my episode of the show of the podcast got a bunch of views as a result. So that was cool. Um, Look, I love every episode. I know that's a cop out, but hear me out. I love every episode because every episode gives me different life lessons. I most of the time, whenever I walk out of a podcast, I sit there for like 5-10 minutes just thinking about like, wow, that was an experience. That I got something from that. I learned from that. Like it's almost like a very selfish endeavor in the sense that like, yeah, I put this content out and it's for you guys and stuff, but I get a lot from it. And sometimes it's like reaffirmation of like, hey kid, just keep going, keep trying, and eventually it'll work out. Like so many of my guests have like inspiring life stories, become like multimillionaires or whatever, successful business people, etc. And they've had like very difficult lives, right? And it's all about staying the course and being true to yourself and working hard and persevering. It gives me hope, and it's amazing that these people would ever agree to be on my show, and that is very flattering. And I'm very grateful that I've been able to create a platform where people would be willing to have those conversations with me and share those stories. And I feel very blessed to do it, and I want to continue to do it. And I just love doing it every single time. Every episode feels special to me. And also, I'm proud that I'm doing more of the discussion episodes where it's just me. That's something that I vowed I would do more of, and I've done several recently. Here's another one of them, right? And they're going well. They're getting better. I feel confident in my ability to sit and talk for like an hour and keep this conversation going, even though it's just with myself and I'm just talking endlessly for like close to an hour or whatever. But I still use the same structure that I always use in order to keep it flowing. And also because you know me, I hate editing. I want to avoid it as much as possible. But yeah, I feel like I've achieved my goals when it comes to that. What is it you've achieved in 2022 as regards to the podcast that has made you most proud? Getting a sponsor. Oh my God, that happened so randomly. And it happened almost like by mistake. I didn't realize for ages in my Anchor portal that there was an option to get sponsored and earn money, and it was with Anchor. And I was like, well, hey, what's this? And I looked into it and then I discovered like, oh, hey, I can get sponsored by them. And oh, I can do my own voiceover and they'll put it in all these different clips or spots, sorry. And I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. And just having the satisfaction of achieving that meant so much to me. And also just continuing the show in general, getting to 190 episodes. That's mega. I've seen so many podcasts come and go, and mine's continued. And I've not really thought about it. I've just kept it going. Do you know what I mean? I've not really. I set myself a goal of at least getting to 10 years, and we'll see what happens when we get there. But 3 years in, close to 3 years in, and I feel like it's better than ever. I feel like we've actually finally figured out what the show is and where it's going and what it means. Yeah, I'm very proud of this show, and I want it to continue to get better. If you had to set yourself 3 goals that you would like to achieve in 2023 about the podcast, what would they be? Well, get more sponsors, earn more money from the show. To get a physical studio. It's in the realms of possibility, but whether I could rent a studio or I could build my own, one of the two, I would love to just have a permanent base for the podcast. I'd prefer to have my own studio or a permanent base where I could just do the show and have physical guests. Oh my God, that's a big one. I want to be able to have people show up and, like, I don't know, I film them with like proper cameras, professional lighting equipment and recording equipment, and just do the show as an actual show, not just a fucking Zoom recording, Um the content is always king, but look, the way it looks is important. I've got a shitty camera. I've got crappy lighting. I've done my best to make the overlays and stuff good. I've spent money in that, and I've rebranded the show and everything. And that's good. I think that's helped somewhat. But you need the professional setup. My stuff is all old and outdated and shitty. And I don't think people hold that against me. I've never seen anyone, hold that against me. But I know that people who've probably never seen my stuff for the first time, or they've never seen it before and they see it for the first time, probably think it looks weak and amateurish. Even if the content's really good, the way something looks is important. And I wish I could change that. There's so many things I wish I could do. But yeah, those would be some of the main things I'd like to achieve. And who knows, maybe next year will be the year. We'll see. What are the top 3 facts, quotes, life lessons that stuck with you from 2022? As I said before, I think it's mainly just to keep going and to be true to yourself. I've gone back and forth on how I feel about everything, but doing this show has always reminded me why I do what I do. I do what I do because I love to do it and I'm passionate about it. And so many of the people I've had on my show are passionate about what they do. And, you keep doing what you want to do, even when life sucks. I think it's especially important to do it then because it keeps you going. Prevents you from giving up. It's so important not to give up. It's easier said than done, but you just can't give up. You got to keep trying, guys. And that's probably the biggest takeaway I've had from all the shows I've done this year. Which specific episode has had the most views this year, and why do you think that is? It's definitely got to be that episode where I interviewed the guy for the Cooper Vortex podcast, who explores the mystery of DB Cooper. And the main reason for that is just that they've got such a big community. I think I posted in their subreddit, and they were really nice and friendly, and a few of them checked out what I did with this podcast, and they dug it, and that was a cool moment. And also it's because of what I mentioned before about this guy being randomly featured on a Netflix documentary, and then that sort of bumped up the numbers on my show. Which episode has had the fewest views, and why do you think that is? There's not like any specific one episode that's had the fewest views, but there's been a lot of episodes that just didn't have many views, and I think it could be a lack of branding. I don't always put like a topic there unless it's the only thing we spoke about in the episode, because with the interviews it's more about the person rather than a mixture of topics. But I always do write a description for every single episode, so you can see some of the highlights of what we discuss in the episodes. And that for me is better than just slapping a topic on each and every one, because they're not all straight topic based. But I think as well, we're still in a position where we're trying to build. So there's still not that many trends and patterns. The only one I could say with any degree of certainty is that I've noticed there are slightly more views for episodes where it's just me talking. And I don't know whether that's because people just like to sit and listen to me talk. It could be that. I know that there's people in my TikTok community that like to listen to me talk in the live streams. So it could be that. Could also just be that it's a topic and that's more interesting, because you know what you're in for versus, if it's just a random guess, you won't necessarily know what to expect. And because you've got different types of fans. You've got people that check you out once in a while because they like what you do, but they're more interested in specific things, like specific topics. And then there's the people that are there for you every single time, regardless of what you do. So you're going to have like different types of followers in that regard. But I think I'm still learning from it. I'm still experimenting. It's very much in the experimentation phase. But expect to see more topic-based episodes next year. I'm going to try to make more of an effort to do that, and also maybe like follow-ups to episodes. So if I have like a particular guest on my show who covers a topic, I might do like follow-ups where I kind of expand upon some of the themes that were explored. We'll see. I've got one coming up where I intend to do that. So anyway, gosh, I've spoken quite exclusively about the podcast today, haven't I? I think I've spoken quite a lot about this year in general. If we can sum it up, I guess the best way to put it is I've made leaps and bounds as far as the podcast and acting is concerned. Can I do more? Can I do more? Yes, I can. Will I do more? Yes, I will. I'm going to try my very best to use every available hour that I can to try and make things happen and try and continue to put myself in a position where I can get an opportunity to progress my career. It's all a big gamble. It really is. But what's the point if you don't gamble in life, You got to. You got to try. Otherwise, what's the point? Anyway, I want to say a massive thank you to everybody for checking out this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it might not be what you were expecting. I wasn't expecting to do this episode. I planned it last minute, but I think it's turned out well. It's been a good exercise for me. I like doing these more reflective episodes. We can do follow-ups if you like. Let me know. Let me know. And yeah, most importantly, I hope you enjoyed this year, and I hope that you'll have a wonderful new year. And I will see you very, very soon. Peace be with you. Be safe. Be well. I'll see you in the next one.